Thanks everyone for joining this morning. This is Bitvo's first Instagram live video. We thought it'd be a good time to do it while everyone is sitting at home, and we wanted to increase our interaction. Normally this time of year we'd be out and about at events, we'd be doing Toronto Blockchain Week, and we miss you all guys, so we thought we'd join here and try to get the same thing going. So feel free to pop in, ask questions. We have with us today Rob from Stablecorp. So Stablecorp is the company behind QCAD, which is a coin that Bitvo launched on its exchange earlier this year. We've been working really closely with Rob and his team. Rob is the COO there. We did an interview with Rob recently that we posted on our blog section of our website, so under articles, that describes QCAD in detail as well as Rob's path to get there. But we thought it'd be cool to spend some time with him this morning in a live forum and bring both of us to you to be able to ask some questions to the extent that you want to, and add to that article here. So Rob, why don't you tell us a little bit about how you got involved in Stablecorp and what your pathway looked like in order to get there?
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you for putting this live together. I certainly wouldn't be able to do it on my own. So thank you and the team. And I guess regarding, let's say, blockchain time zone, a month is almost a year, right? So after that interview, a lot happened. And so I'll gladly go over through at least some of the topics through this live. So certainly my path here is potentially not the usual path. So I'm a computer engineer, so I started my career on a more technical path, but always worked on banks and credit unions. So some big names like Citibank, HSBC, Rabobank from Netherlands, but I didn't have an exact plan of going into the crypto blockchain world in my career. I actually always loved the technology and got curious as I got curious to other technologies that were emerging. And I think just like in life, some random things happen and make you make decisions. So I worked with Deloitte Canada for 2 years back in 2015 to 17 and met a couple of guys that in some sense founded and supported Stablecorp and some of it kind of partner companies. And they invited me to join the project early last year, around May or something, when Stablecorp got incorporated. And we kind of, reached an agreement, and I started working in late August in Stablecorp. So mostly because I knew the founders, Cassim Frank, and some of his partners and colleagues from Deloitte Canada. And so we kept the friendship going. And at some point, they presented me the project, and I thought it was a very interesting project and a moment in my career that I wanted to do some entrepreneurial efforts instead of just keeping the corporate path, which was what I've been doing forever.
Fantastic. I remember meeting with you and Kesem and the team back in Toronto midway through last year, and it was very cool to watch you guys go from kind of an idea at your offices there in Toronto all the way through to fruition to the day that we listed it and put it live on the Bitvo exchange and watched our customers trade it. So it's a very cool process to be involved in, and congratulations on where you've gotten to so far.
No, thank you. Meaning likewise, if it wasn't for partners like Bitvo, we wouldn't be there. And I think from a, let's say, corporate spirit perspective or company spirit perspective, we actually, put a lot of our efforts and body and mind into the end of last year to get this live. So I think that's a bit of every entrepreneurial company, the fact that you just want to make it work regardless of the challenges you have ahead. So I agree with you. Getting it live early this year was challenging and exciting at the same time. Yeah.
Like any new project.
Yeah.
So why don't we take a quick step back? I'm not sure what level our viewers are at in terms of their knowledge of stable coins. So maybe you can take a brief moment, just kind of at a high level, explain what they are, how they work, what their benefit might be.
Sure. No, that's meaning one of the questions I get the most, and I love to go through because we always add some additional flavor to try to make the answer easy to understand and easy to replicate. So stable coins are a new, not so new, but a fairly new asset class. So a new instrument or a digital tool that you have to transfer value or store value, right? And the idea behind stable coins are fairly simple if you boil it down. We already have Bitcoin running through the first blockchain implementation for now almost 10 years. And actually more than 10 years. And people have been seeing how that technology has some groundbreaking features, right? So the understanding was, why not leverage from some of the native features of a blockchain network, but still keeping some of the properties we see in national currencies and fiat currencies that have kind of a stable value. It all depends, and currently we're living a very volatile moment regarding foreign exchange. But nonetheless, the idea is, how do you merge the positive features of the blockchain with things that people already know and understand related to currencies or national currencies, right? So I think that's the idea behind a stablecoin. And also then there are complementary ideas that came into the project or the ecosystem, which is the understanding that there's a gap between fiat currency either sitting on a bank or a credit union or in your wallet versus having a Bitcoin, Ether, or whatever other crypto asset. So there's a small gap between them, because everyone should know here, with our best efforts, including Bitfos, to make this a fast and a seamless process, there's still a lot of legacy process with banks and etc. that makes this process not the easiest one. So having a stable coin kind of bridge that gap, right? So you would still be able to have assets or value stored in a currency-like representation and go back and forth to other crypto assets that might be more volatile or have an investment profile linked to it. So I think that's the key idea behind the stable coins.
What do you see people most using them for? Now that QCAD's live, what do you think the largest use of QCAD is?
Yep, that's also a great question. So I think it's interesting to go back to where the concept of a stable coin came, as I briefly mentioned. So if you look at banks now, they are already digital in some way. You use your phone, your computer, whatever, and you use your bank. But nonetheless, there's still some things that are not very easy to handle, right? So payments, they might take 3 to 5 days to get processed. They only get processed during commercial hours. Sometimes the fees are not very friendly. So those things put people sometimes away from banks or not using all the features they could use if it was a simpler process. So I think a lot of the users of stablecoins are basically doing things that they would also be able to do with banks, but they are doing easier and cheaper using stablecoins. So basically, an example from Stablecorp, we have vendors abroad that we hired from Asia and from Latin America. And for both, we were able to do instantaneous payments using stable coins, and specifically QCAD, during a weekend or overnight, because of the time zone. Sometimes we're discussing a project at 9 p.m., 10 p.m. And if we were to use our bank, which is, again, a great partner, but we would still have to wait for the next day, create a payment template, process the template, wait some other days to get cleared. So sometimes you're doing small engagements, and having this sort of small, fast payments with your vendors, partners, or even employees is something that create a interesting use case, right? I could go on forever, but I think the other two use cases that I would like to also bring, one is foreign exchange. So as more and more stable coins are getting created and getting adopted across the globe, especially Europe and United States, Latin America is also an emerging market from a stablecoin perspective as well. People are able to trade between coins much faster and cheaply than they would do if they went to a traditional foreign exchange a company or even their banks. So people that, for instance, now we're living a very volatile moment. So it would be much easier for you to go from Canadian dollar to US dollar and vice versa using stable coins than potentially using your bank. Even because the bank's infrastructure got hit a bit about all the intensity of the movement that happened with this crisis. So I guess foreign exchange and payments are the two key use cases that we're seeing right now. But just to give you one, and again, it comes more and more examples to my mind, but just to give you another practical example, JP Morgan, and this is a public information, they created their own stablecoin. So it's a private stablecoin that they use to do settlements between the various units of the bank across the globe. So they're not a retail-facing solution. It's an internal corporate settlement solution. So basically, instead of wire transferring between their own banks and bank accounts and codes, they created a layer on the blockchain, and it's a private blockchain, and they settle their own internal accounts using a stablecoin. So again, we can go on, but I think it's always related mostly with payment, settlement, and transactions that you can do faster and cheaper than you would do with other rails and infrastructures.